Okay, so you run a record label and now you want to make tons of money, and you've heard that there's this secret club where all you have to do is submit your music and it can get on like the coolest Netflix and HBO shows and in BMW car commercials. Well, I'm here to tell you there is an actual secret club, so keep watching and I'll tell you how to get in. I'm kidding. Before we dive in, hello and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. Before we dive in, I want to share with you something I've been working on for the past few months, something that's going to help you with your sync licensing goals as an independent artist, but specifically as an independent record label. And that's my sync licensing guide for record labels. And you can download that by going to otherrecordlabels.com/sync. The link is in the description below. Sync is spelled SYNC, which stands for synchronization. So let's talk about what is sync. And in this episode, we're going to dive into just the basics of what sync licensing is and what you may need to know about sync licensing. And in future episodes in this series, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty and we're going to do some interviews with some music supervisors and some music libraries and some really important people and get some hands-on insights into the world of sync licensing. But today, just the basics. So sync licensing, simply put, is the act of syncing, intentionally syncing music with a video. And then that could be a film, a TV commercial, or a video game. But it's actually a human being taking some music that pre-exists and some film and some video that's been made and syncing them together. Here's what I actually like to think about it. The way I like to think about sync. I like to think of sync as creating a brand new piece of art from two pre-existing pieces of art. For example, we have the music that is a piece of art, and then we have the film that's a piece of art. And then when you put them together, it creates something brand new and doubly powerful. Let's take, for example, that new Kate Bush sync that everyone's talking about from Stranger Things. Without that song, the film or the scene was just a dramatic scene. That song without the dramatic scene was just a great pop tune. But when you put them together, you get something incredibly magical, something where it doubles the efforts of both. And it's just this incredible thing. And that's why it's blowing up. And so to me, that's one way we can look at sync licensing, is creating something brand new. And that's why artists and record labels are due a sync fee, because of the important role that their music has in a TV commercial or in a film. You know those moments when you're watching a movie trailer and you get a goosebumps when like a great song comes on, or it at the climax of a TV show when the people are about to kiss and there's like an indie rock tune. That's why artists and record labels are entitled to a sync fee. And a sync fee is basically an agreed upon amount of money that the music supervisor will discuss with the record label, or if an independent artist is representing their own catalog, and they'll agree upon this fee. And sometimes if it's like an independent production, I've agreed on sync fees that are $50 for like a local university to use one of our record label songs. I've also done a sync fee on Degrassi that was $1,000. And then there's sync fees that are $100,000 or $1 million or 10 million if it's a Beatles track or whatever. And so that's a sync fee. One thing I want to clear up is when you're walking through H&M or whatever, and you hear a song on the radio, that's not a sync. That's just broadcast music. That's just radio. It's incidental. Even if it feels like it matches the vibe and the aesthetic of the store, it's not the case. It's just, that's broadcast music. Artists get paid from their PROs for broadcasting, but that's not the same as a sync. Understand that. I want to keep this episode as concise as possible, and we're going to talk about three super basic categories of sync licensing that you may have heard of or that you are sort of familiar with. And so we're going to, there's probably more, there's probably tons more, but we're going to keep it to just three categories that we're going to discuss. And we're going to talk about the what and the how and the who, I think. The motto of other record labels is to take the mystery out of running a record label. And one of the facets of running a record label is sync licensing. And it's one of the most mysterious facets of running a record label. And that's what I want to try to pull apart in this entire series on sync licensing. But today we're just going to talk about the basics. Number one, film and TV. This is the most common one and the one that most of us desire. It's the ones that we probably think about when we think about sync licensing. We think about songs used in a movie trailer, in a TV show. You remember the OC? That was like a really big time when people would actually discover music through a television show, and all of the WB shows like for teenagers. That was when it was started using indie rock tunes as opposed to like just like stock music that they would have used on like, I don't know, Family Matters or Saved by the Bell or something in that era. And now when we watch Netflix and we watch HBO, whether it's a documentary or it's like a hit new show, we really want our music to be used in film and TV. And so that's one of the biggest categories. And who controls this sync licensing in film and TV? Generally, it's music supervisors. And you can find out what's a music supervisor. Well, we're going to talk to a music supervisor. We're going to talk to a few of them in this series, not today, but a music supervisor is someone who supervises the music licensing for a specific production, whether that's a commercial or it's a TV show. Maybe it's just one episode of a TV show. Maybe it's the entire season or the entire series. Maybe it's a film. And so the director or the writer says, we want to use this super popular song. And so then the music supervisor will be instructed to go out and find the rights to that song and to secure the rights to the song and to find if it can be used. If it can't be used, they got to go back to the producer or the director and say it can't be used, but here's a song that sounds like it, or we found an independent artist who's going to do a cover of that song that sort of sounds like it or is a fresh take on it. You can find out who music supervisors are on your favorite TV shows by going to TuneFind, TUNEFIND. It's a great website. I think it's tunefind.com. And you can search by show or by movie, and they generally have who the music supervisor is. You can also check on LinkedIn if you're sleuthy, and you can attend conferences. And sometimes even the Guild of Music Supervisors might tell you when they do webinars and stuff like that. And even on the show's social media. If you go to the social media platforms for some of your favorite TV shows, sometimes they'll talk about the soundtrack or the music used, and they might mention who the music supervisor is. But how do you get your music on your music license for film and TV? The problem is it's not that easy. And even if you find out who the music supervisor is, I wouldn't really recommend pitching your music. I mean, you can, I'm sure, but it's probably just going to annoy them. And that's really not how you get your music on film and TV. You get your music on film and TV over building relationships over the long term and getting to know music supervisors, serving them, and introducing your catalog at an appropriate time, pitching to them as an individual, as a professional, not necessarily begging to get on the hot new show. But maybe you've put together a nice little web page that has like 5 SoundCloud links of the catalog that you represent. Maybe you clearly indicate that you have the rights to license this from a publishing standpoint and from the master's standpoint, and that you can provide them with everything they need. Maybe you can tell them you have waves and MP3s and you have stems. We're going to talk about what all this means later on in this sync licensing series. But the best case scenario is you put together this nice little package, and then you can send it to music supervisors. Maybe just send them an email and introduce yourself and your record label. You'll have the most success if you niche down as a record label. If you can email a music supervisor and say, hey, listen, we do rockabilly music and we record it all in-house. And it's all with real instruments. There's no synthesizers or fake instruments involved. We have instrumentals for everything. We have the publishing and the master rights for everything. And we have stems for all of our songs. If you ever need rockabilly, and we have songwriters and singers on hand. If you ever need rockabilly music, I'm your person for that. Here's some samples. Here's a little bit about the label. And you may not hear back from them, but they may put that information on file and go, great. If a director or a producer or project ever requires that we need a bespoke rockabilly song, they now know who to contact. So it's really helpful if you're pitching to music supervisors, if you are in a specific niche genre that they can, because you know what I mean? If you were to like pitch yourself and be like, we do pop music or we do indie rock music. Well, it's like, lots of people do that. And so that's not a great way to separate yourself. The second category is advertising. And so this would be TV commercials traditionally, and this would also be online ads. A lot of these songs, interestingly enough, are composed by a production house, or they're composed by an ad agency, or the brand has specifically asked for a song, or sometimes the ad agency has said, we want an existing song, but a bespoke version. For example, you've ever heard like a TV commercial or a TV show where you hear like a 90s Radiohead song, but it's sung by like a 16-year-old girl. Or if it's like a Bob Dylan song, but it's sung by like a young band, an indie rock band. Those are like sometimes like an ad agency would require that. So this is a category, advertising is a category of sync licensing that can be a little disappointing to record labels and independent artists, because there's a whole group of people, and we're going to interview somebody in our series on this topic, but there's a whole group of people who are composing specifically for advertising. So it's kind of rare that somebody would just grab a song that's pre-existing on an album. And one of the reasons is it can be difficult to license that if we can't get all the band members, or if the label's not responsive, or we don't know who all the songwriters are. We're not able to license that quickly. And in advertising, they're moving very, very fast. They have a deadline, and ad agencies trying to get something to present to the client as quickly as possible. So they want to make sure that they have a song that they can license right away. And the other reason is that sometimes the lyrics don't always fit. However, there have been times where I've had pitches from advertisers who've said, we're looking for just a folk tune that's about living life and being happy. And so a lot of songs that aren't necessarily custom made for advertising would work for that. And so if you have something in your catalog and you hear about an opening for something like that, then you can pitch to an ad agency or music production houses. The best way to get your music used in advertising, and this is going to annoy you again, is relationships. And being that person who's known for a certain genre, or is known for having music that is all cleared and easily licensed, or being known as someone who can quickly whip something together, or someone who has access to a huge catalog. And so building these relationships with production houses, and you can start local. I mean, look in your city for agencies who make TV commercials, and you might be able to get some of your songs used in just like local TV commercials that might pay a few $100 for your song to be used, and grow from there. And so getting with ad agencies and production houses and learning who they are and how they operate can help you in this realm. The ultimate goal is to become the person that somebody would call for music. For example, I had a friend who I knew in the music industry. He was a video editor, and he got a job a couple years after we had met, working at an ad agency in Toronto, a really big ad agency. And they were working on this commercial, and he was just a video editor. And they knew that he heard that they needed a cover version of a really popular song, and they needed it really quick. So he texted me and said, how quickly could you record a cover of this song? He's my friend. He's been to my studio. He knows that we have musicians and we have a recording studio, and that we can quickly put stuff together. And so he knew that I would be able to do this. And because he's my friend and we had this relationship, we were able to quickly get him a song, and it was able to be used, made a bit of money off of it. It was really nice. Well, how does that happen? It happens because he and I met in the music industry working on other projects. Then he got a job working somewhere else. So there's really no like magic bullet. It's about just consistently building up your record label's connections, being nice to everyone, being generous, and always delivering great work, because that one person who works at a magazine, or that one person who interned at your record label, is now working at an ad agency, or is now interning for a music supervisor. The final category is music libraries. And this is like an online database with music that's ready to be licensed. It's something like filmmakers or videographers, even the people who make wedding videos, music supervisors even will go to these websites, and they can search by tempo, by mood, by instruments, by other artists that sound like something. Some algorithms, you can type in a popular song and they'll show songs that are similar to that. These are music libraries. They're web platforms. You've heard of BAM, who we're going to have on the show soon, MusicBed, Marmoset. There's tons of them. Epidemic Sound is a big one that is primarily for YouTubers to use pre-cleared music of different genres. And it's basically just this library of instrumental music, sometimes vocal music, that has already been cleared. We know who the artist is. We know we can license it. It has a price tag attached to it based on how the filmmaker, if the filmmaker is going to use it in a big commercial production, then it's going to cost them more. But if they're going to use it in a little documentary or just in a private wedding video, then they can get that for much cheaper. And then the music library takes a cut, and then they pay the artist or the record label who's uploaded the music a cut. Do a little bit of research. Some of them are invite only. Some of them are open. You just submit your music and away you go. Some of them you have to submit a sample of your catalog and give some information and some different experiences that you've had. And if they like you, if they have room in their library for certain genres, sometimes you might be doing indie pop and they're like, listen, we've got enough indie pop. Or maybe you have ambient classical and they're like, sorry, we've got enough of this. But you might say, oh, listen, I do lo-fi hip hop, or I do, you know, some sort of, I do bluegrass music. And they're like, oh, actually, we don't have any bluegrass music. And they'll bring you in. Some of them are exclusive. Some of them are not exclusive. What that means is that if it's exclusive, it means if you upload your music to these music libraries, that you can't license your music anywhere else, or you can't upload it to multiple music libraries. If it's non-exclusive, then you could, in theory, upload the same song to multiple different music libraries. And so most music libraries, most reputable music libraries are invite only, and they are exclusive. And that's because if somebody comes to them and finds a great track, they want to know this is the best price that they can get for this track, as opposed to searching the web and be like, can I get a better price for this? It's totally up to you if you want to submit your catalog to a music library. Again, if you are genre specific, if you have niched down in your music genre, that can really help you when it comes to sync licensing. You may want to take just some of your best songs. You might have a catalog of like 50 tunes on your label, and you might want to go through them and find out what songs you think would work best in wedding videos or TV commercials or documentaries or whatever, and just pick the best 20 songs to put your best foot forward. Or maybe you want to grab them all. The more versatile your tracks are, meaning if you have mastered an instrumental version, if you have the stem tracks, like the drums isolated and the electric guitars isolated and the vocals isolated so that they can be removed, then that's going to increase your chances on these music library platforms far more than if you just upload one basic MP3. If a video editor is coming in there, they're going to want to license something where they can have a moment in their scene where they drop down to just drum and bass and the synths in the background, and then bring the vocals back in. And so sometimes editors like to edit the music in that way to better fit the picture. So the more versatile your tracks are, the more success you're going to have. These three categories, film and TV, advertising, and music libraries, this whole chart of like how to contact them, who they are, where you'll find them, what they are, this chart is available in the sync licensing guide I talked about at the beginning of this episode. You can download it for free by clicking the link in the description or going to otherrecordlabels.com/sync. Now, listen, you might think these are all interesting categories. I want to try to monetize our record label's catalog as best as possible on all of these platforms. We're going to dive into the how-to, and we're going to meet some people in this series. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you listen to more of our sync licensing series, because I think you're going to find it really helpful. And download our free guide at otherrecordlabels.com/sync. Thanks for watching.